God's chosen ones. Stop scrolling. Right now. Heaven has halted the noise of your surroundings to deliver this divine message. This isn't a suggestion. This is a summons. 2 angels are standing before you. One holds a scroll, etched with light. The other grips a sword, wrapped in fire. Their presence is not metaphor, it is divine reality. You are not watching this by accident. This is your 21-minute warning. And every second counts. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That restless stirring in your chest. The sense that something bigger is happening around you, through you, even to you. That's not emotion. That's a spiritual alarm. That's destiny waking up. You are not common. You've never been. You've always been marked. But now, it's time to choose publicly, powerfully, permanently. You were set apart before you were even born. Before betrayal. Before heartbreak. Before the lies. You were named in the courts of heaven. Your name has been echoed in angelic circles. The darkness has always feared you. That's why it came for you so early. That's why you've been misunderstood, left out, pushed aside, because the enemy saw the blueprint and panicked. But the devil's panic is proof of your purpose. Hear me. You are chosen to shift atmospheres. You are called to disrupt darkness. That's why you've felt so out of place in normal settings. That's why comfort has always made you uncomfortable. You were never meant to blend in. You were always meant to blaze a trail. And now 2 angels are standing by. They're watching to see if you will rise. The first angel is burning with mercy. His voice trembles with passion. He pleads, not because heaven is weak, but because heaven is merciful. He says, return before the gate closes. Come back before the veil is sealed. You still have time, but barely. The second angel, his sword is drawn. It glows with judgment. It hums with divine consequence. He doesn't speak with words. His silence is thunder, and time is running out. You are in a divine pause, a sacred interruption. Everything that has distracted you, delayed you, discouraged you, it's all silenced in this moment. Why? Because God wants your full attention. Because heaven is pulling you into alignment. Because you are being activated into your assignment. Think back. The near-death moments. The betrayals that should have broken you. The nights you wanted to quit. Why are you still here? Because you were covered, protected, preserved. You've walked through fire, but it didn't consume you. You've swum through deep waters, but they didn't drown you. As we read in Isaiah 43, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. That verse wasn't written for a past generation. It was declared for you, right now, this very moment. There are no accidents in the kingdom. There are only divine appointments. And this is one of them. This is not just a video. This is a divine courtroom. And you are on trial for destiny. Heaven is watching. Hell is trembling. The angels are holding their breath. Because your next move will shape eternity. This is not about fear. This is about fire. The fire of purpose. The fire of holiness. The fire of awakening. And chosen one. You are the matchstick. What you do in the next 21 minutes matters. Not just for you, but for generations. For your bloodline. For the ones watching your life. Waiting to see if you'll give up or get up. You were born to be a torchbearer. But torches only blaze when they meet fire. And right now, Heaven's fire is touching down. So many around you are spiritually asleep. But you're awake. You feel it. You know this is not entertainment. This is encounter. This is not hype. This is holy. There's a reason you've been feeling pressure. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You're being stretched because your calling is bigger than you imagined. You're being shaken because heaven is trying to wake you. This moment is not routine. It is revolutionary. The countdown has begun. 21 minutes. That's not a metaphor. That's your divine window. After that, the scroll is sealed. The sword is raised. And what you decide now will echo into eternity. So here's what you must do. Respond, not passively, boldly. Share this. Declare it. Type it. Don't let this fire stay private. Because chosen people are never silent. Chosen people testify. Chosen people roar. Chosen people declare, I was summoned, I will rise. I will obey. This message is not just for you, it's for your tribe. For the ones you're called to. For the ones who will only rise when they see you rise. For the ones who need your voice to wake up. So don't scroll past this fire. Feed it. Share it. Light up every corner of your timeline with the glory that just touched you. And if your heart is burning right now, if your spirit knows this is divine, then let heaven know you hear the call. Comment 777 below. Declare your return, not to religion, but to purpose, to assignment, to fire. Chosen one. Long before the noise of life clouded your clarity, before the betrayal, before the fear, before you were silenced by circumstances, you were marked. Not by man, not by failure, but by heaven itself. There is a seal over your life, an invisible signature of the Most High that distinguishes you from the rest. You've never quite fit in because you were never meant to. You weren't designed to blend into the background. You were crafted to stand out in the battlefield of eternity. Even when you felt invisible, heaven had its eyes on you. Even when the mirror reflected insecurity and shame, heaven saw a warrior. When you felt disqualified, disarmed, and dismissed, the throne room whispered your name. Because you were never called by the world's standards. You were appointed according to a higher blueprint, etched in eternity and sealed in fire. There's a reason your soul has always felt older than your years. Why you wept over things others laughed at. Why you sensed storms before they formed. That deep knowing within you is spiritual inheritance. It's the echo of your divine identity, breaking through natural limitations. You were never just going through it. You were being trained in the shadows for a war you didn't even know you'd have to fight. You've always carried something the world couldn't understand. That's why you've been misread, misused, and misunderstood. But that divine marking didn't fade just because people walked away. If anything, their departure made more room for destiny to expand. You've lost a lot, but you never lost your anointing. You've been stripped but never forsaken. You've been wondering why your heart is so heavy. Why you feel so much when others seem numb. That sensitivity is sacred. It's the fingerprint of your assignment. Because what breaks you is what you're called to heal. What shakes you is what you're meant to stabilize. And that internal storm, it's not a sign you're weak. It's proof you're carrying power yet to be revealed. Chosen one, your tears have not gone unnoticed. Every silent scream, every lonely prayer, heaven collected them. They weren't wasted. They were stored. And now, they are being turned into oil. The kind of oil that doesn't just anoint it, destroys yokes. You are about to see how heaven turns agony into authority. You thought your pain disqualified you, but in heaven's economy, your pain is your platform. Your brokenness isn't a liability, it's a weapon, because no demon can manipulate someone who has already survived hell. Your scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs that hell tried and failed. It was Paul who wrote in Ephesians 2, "Lo, God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in the heavenly realms." You're not crawling through life. You're seated in authority. Even when you feel surrounded, you've been raised now. It's time to rise in that truth. When others looked away, heaven looked closer. When people counted you out, God started counting on you. He marked you not because you were perfect, but because you were available. And now, your availability is colliding with heaven's timing. That collision will shake things. The enemy didn't attack you randomly. He saw your light and tried to snuff it out before you recognized it for yourself. That's why the warfare was so personal. It wasn't just about stopping you. It was about keeping you unaware of what you carry. Because the most dangerous believer isn't the loud one, it's the awakened one. And now you're awakening. There is a sound rising from your spirit, a frequency that hell cannot duplicate. You are stepping into remembrance, not of what happened to you, but of who you were before it all. Before the heartbreak, before the compromise, before the silence. You are remembering who you were when heaven first whispered, "You're mine, chosen one." This isn't a return to religion. It's a return to identity. A divine homecoming to the truth you were born to walk in. You were never called to normalcy. You were called to carry weight in the spirit, to move things when you pray, to shift rooms when you speak, to break chains when you walk. You were always meant to trouble the kingdom of darkness. This isn't just about surviving anymore. This is about standing, because marked ones don't just endure, they overthrow. Marked ones don't ask for permission, they move in obedience. Marked ones don't shrink back, they step in. And chosen one, it's time to step in. No more doubting the call. No more watering down your light. No more apologizing for your oil. You've been marked by heaven, called out of the crowd, anointed in obscurity. And now, you are being unveiled, not for applause, but for assignment, not for validation, but for victory. You were always different, and now, different is required. Chosen one. Listen carefully. This next part is going to unlock something buried deep inside of you. You've been walking with chains around your voice, silence tied to your purpose, and weight pressing down on your divine identity. But today, right now, something is breaking. Not just around you, but within you. This is more than a message. This is a moment, a shift, a divine turning point where heaven pushes back the veil and reveals who you've been all along. You've been underestimated, misunderstood, overlooked, but not by God. He has watched every moment, every battle you didn't tell anyone about, every night you cried out in the dark and wondered if heaven heard. Every time you smiled in public but fell apart in private, nothing has been hidden from his sight. You were always seen. You were always known. You were always chosen. There is a light inside of you that hell has tried to extinguish through disappointment, through distraction, through betrayal. But your light is still burning. Do you feel it? That fire beginning to stir again. That's your spirit remembering. Remembering that you're not just trying to survive this life. You were sent to transform it, to infiltrate darkness, to carry power, to walk as one who was sent by the King himself. Your footsteps are not ordinary. Every place you go shifts the atmosphere, not because of who you are in the natural, but because of who you are in the spirit. You carry weight. You disturb darkness. You interrupt the plans of hell just by breathing. That's why the warfare intensified when you started waking up. The enemy saw the shift before you did. That's why he launched attacks so early. Childhood trauma, identity confusion, relationship sabotage. It wasn't random. It was retaliation. Hell was terrified of what would happen if you ever discovered who you truly are. But now you know. Luke 10:19 declares, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. That authority is yours. Not borrowed, not begged for. Yours. Not because of your past, but in spite of it. You are dangerous to the darkness. You are disruptive to demonic systems. And now, you're no longer running from it. You're rising into it. You've been quiet long enough. You've apologized for your fire long enough. You've dimmed your anointing for people who were intimidated by your light. No more. The days of spiritual hiding are over. God is calling you out, not for popularity, but for purpose, not for platform, but for presence. This is why your isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Heaven had to pull you away to whisper identity into your spirit, to cleanse the residue of false labels, to detox the lies of the enemy, to make you remember what you carry, because the next season of your life requires the real you, the awakened you, the fire-filled you, chosen one. It's time to walk differently, to pray with boldness, to speak with authority, to move like you know who sent you. You are not trying to be chosen, you already are. And that comes with responsibility, because chosen ones don't live casually. We live consecrated. You've been forgiven now. Walk free. You've been redeemed. Now live righteous. You've been awakened. Now stay alert. Because the time for passivity is over. Your very presence is a weapon. Your words carry divine charge. When you declare truth, shackle break. When you intercede, heaven moves. You were born for this. You were trained in private. Now, it's time to stand in public. You are not a mistake. You are not a problem. You are a solution wrapped in skin, a vessel of divine purpose, a child of fire. And there is nothing ordinary about you. So rise, walk, move. The same power that raised Christ from the grave lives in you. You are not powerless. You are not helpless. You are a temple of divine authority, chosen, called, commissioned. Let this truth echo in your soul. The darkness will regret ever trying you. Type, still burning, because after everything you faced after the storms, the silence, the sabotage, you're still here, still burning. Not because of your strength alone, but because heaven has preserved your flame. This is your declaration, not just to the world, but to every spirit that doubted your endurance. You didn't burn out. You were forged in fire. The angel's words carry the weight of eternity. Return, he whispers again, not because God is unsure of you, but because God longs to restore what's been dulled by delay. And in his voice, there is no condemnation, only a fierce kind of love that refuses to give up on you. You don't need a reminder of how far you've drifted. You already know. What you need now is the reminder that it's not too late. You've questioned whether you can still walk in your assignment. whether what was promised can still come to pass, whether you missed your moment. But here is the truth. Heaven didn't change its mind. You see, when God called you, He already factored in the wandering. He already foresaw the detours, the disappointments, the doubts. But He never revoked your destiny. The scroll is still active. The oil is still available. The assignment still stands. And this angel stands before you now, not to reprimand, but to realign. Think back to when the fire first touched you, when your heart burned for more than survival, when you wept in secret, not because of pain, but because you felt something holy stirring inside. That wasn't just emotion. That was a divine seed being planted. The enemy knew it too. That's why he launched everything he could to bury that seed under disappointment and distraction. That's why he sent relationships that looked divine but drained you. That's why doors closed, right when your faith started to rise. It wasn't punishment, it was war. But mercy has never been absent. It was mercy that kept the door open. It was mercy that whispered through your silence. It was mercy that protected you when your decisions should have destroyed you. And now, mercy is here again, standing embodied in an angel, beckoning you. Paul writes in Romans 11, Arshjo, for the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. That means no mistake you've made, no path you've taken, has nullified what God originally spoke over your life. The call is still alive. The mission is still waiting. The angel knows this. That's why he pleads with such urgency, not because God's patience has run out, but because delay is dangerous. Every minute wasted outside of alignment is ground gained by the enemy. Every moment you stay outside of your calling is a moment darkness goes unchallenged. Chosen one. This is not just about you. Your obedience is the key that unlocks freedom for others. You don't see them now, but there are lives tied to your yes. People you haven't met, nations you haven't touched, chains you haven't broken yet, and they are all waiting on you to remember who you are. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are not too far. The Father has been watching from a distance, and the moment you move even slightly toward Him, He runs. That's who He is. And this angel's cry is the sound of heaven running to meet you. This is your turning point. Not a second chance. A sacred one. The kind of moment heaven writes into its eternal timeline. The kind of moment that changes generations. Don't underestimate the weight of this second. It's more than a feeling. It's the summoning of your soul back to divine alignment. The enemy wants you distracted right now. He wants you thinking about your past, about what you lack, about who hurt you. Why? Because if he can anchor you in bitterness or shame, he can keep you from stepping into the very thing you were created for. But the angel's voice cuts through all of it. Return. Not because you're bad, but because you're brilliant. Because what's inside you terrifies hell. Because your potential is prophetic. Because your alignment means awakening for others. Because your light was always meant to blaze in darkness, not flicker in compromise. The time is now. The wind is shifting. The heavens are open. And your name is echoing in places you've never seen. There's still time, and it's still yours. You don't even realize how closely heaven has been watching you. Every step, every cry, every time you stood when it would have been easier to stay down. You think no one noticed, but the throne room did. The records of your faithfulness, imperfect but relentless, are written in eternity. Nothing has gone unseen. Nothing has been wasted. There were moments when you were the only one praying in your house. Moments You interceded with no response, believed when there was no sign. You thought it didn't matter, but the first angel speaks again now, and his voice is fierce. Every time you chose obedience, even in silence, the heavens recorded it. It wasn't for nothing. Your tears watered soil you didn't know you were standing on. You were planting in a season that felt like drought. But harvest is never forgotten in the kingdom. It may delay, but it always comes. And now, that delayed harvest is trembling in the spirit. Because your time is arriving, you have been watched, not only by angels, but by generations. Those who came before you interceded for this moment. You are not alone in your journey. You are the answer to prayers that your ancestors whispered through pain. The oil on your life is generational. It's sacred. It's costly. And heaven doesn't forget the cost. The attacks weren't random. The loneliness wasn't wasted. The moments of obscurity were divine. God was shaping you in the dark, so you wouldn't be destroyed by the light. Now, the veil is lifting. The hidden things are coming into view. The story you thought was scattered is aligning, and all the watching realms, angels and principalities alike, are turning to see what you will do next. And that's why your testimony matters. Your voice carries weight. When you speak, it doesn't just echo, it pierces. There are people right now scrolling through their lives like zombies, numb to their purpose, asleep to their identity. But one word from someone who's lived it, someone like you, can awaken them. This is how the kingdom moves, not just through pulpits, but through the obedience of those marked by mercy. If this message is stirring something deep in your spirit, if your heart burns and you feel the undeniable tug of purpose, don't let the flame stop here. Let this fire multiply. Click like, share this word, and make sure others who need this divine moment don't miss it. You may be the reason someone rediscovers their calling. And if you want to keep receiving these prophetic messages, subscribe to this channel. Stay connected to what God is pouring out. Stay near the fire. Stay near the word. And to those who feel led, if this message has ministered to you deeply, and you feel called to pour back into this work, your support helps carry the oil farther. Whether small or sacrificial, your giving is never in vain. Sow into what's feeding your spirit. Help us keep the message going to reach more lives, more nations, more chosen ones, still hidden in the shadows. Paul reminds us in Galatians 6, Jew, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. You didn't come this far to quit. You didn't endure all of that to stop now. Your harvest is closer than it's ever been. The angels know it. The enemy senses it. And now, you must believe it. Chosen one, you have been watched, vehid, and now activated, not by the eyes of men, but by the voice of heaven. You carry something that will never be replicated. There is no copy of your calling, no duplicate of your destiny. And that means you must move forward, fully, boldly. Now, chosen one, hear this clearly. The second angel steps forward now, and he is not calm like the first. His presence carries a warning so heavy, it makes the very air around you feel thick. His robe trembles, not from fear, but from the weight of heaven's urgency. His sword is drawn, not to harm, but to highlight what's at stake. There is sorrow in his eyes, not because hope is gone, but because time is thinning. His silence says what words cannot. Heaven is not panicked, but it is pressing. The delay in your surrender has ripples, and each ripple pushes you closer to a threshold. You are one rebellion away from blindness, One more delay from forfeiting access. And still, mercy holds the door open. This angel does not speak gently. His voice thunders through your spirit. This is your edge. You are standing at a cliff between destiny and deviation. One more step into distraction, and you may lose what heaven has fought to preserve in you. God does not play with repeated rebellion. What begins with delay can end in delusion. You have felt the grace lifting, haven't you? The ease that once surrounded you isn't there like before. That's not punishment. That's the spirit realm, adjusting to your resistance. When mercy calls and is ignored long enough, it doesn't fight you. It steps back. Not in anger, but in judgment. Hebrews 10:26 reminds us, if we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left. This is not about mistakes, it's about will. You've heard, you've known, and the clock isn't just counting seconds now, it's counting responses. The angel doesn't offer comfort. He offers clarity. You know what God told you. You know what He asked of you. You know what He's been tugging at. And still, you've waited. You've delayed. You've said, soon, as if heaven is obligated to align with your hesitation. Chosen one, no more. The time for hesitation is over. The second angel is heaven's final attempt to rattle you awake. He is a divine interruption sent not to comfort but to cut, not to soothe but to summon. You are playing with something sacred, and if you wait too long, what was once grace can become grief. It's not that God won't forgive. It's that some assignments expire. Some doors are seasonal. Some access isn't permanent. And when the angel says, move, you must move. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. You've been excusing the compromise, explaining the delay, pretending the tug in your spirit wasn't real. But heaven doesn't need your rationalizations. Heaven is waiting for your obedience. You know what needs to be cut off. You know what must be surrendered. You know who cannot go with you. This is not confusion. This is a crisis of will. And this angel, this flaming warrior of divine urgency, is not leaving until you decide. This is the moment. The veil is thin. The fire is near. And the scroll is ready to be sealed with your yes, or closed with your silence. You're standing at a divine crossroads. Do you return? Or do you delay one more time and risk losing what can't be bought back? This is where spiritual tension becomes spiritual truth. You have not run out of time, but you are running out of mercy. There's no anger in heaven's voice, only ache. Not because God needs you, but because He chose you. He called you knowing everything you'd struggle with, every weakness, every flaw, every temptation. Still, He called you. But now, the calling demands a decision. The second angel lowers his sword, not in surrender, but in silence. He will not force you. That is the final mercy. Choice. But understand this, what you don't choose today may not be waiting tomorrow. Your destiny is not casual. Your anointing is not common. The oil on your life was purchased through generations of intercession, warfare, and sacrifice. You cannot afford another delay. You cannot afford another later, because spiritual windows don't open forever, and prophetic moments don't repeat themselves on demand. You feel it now, the trembling in your spirit, the holy unease. That's the sound of heaven knocking for the last time in this chapter. Not to scare you, but to save you. Not to shame you, but to stir you. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. If your spirit is bearing witness, respond. Don't justify. Don't argue. Don't scroll. Respond. Let the kingdom know you're not deaf to the sound of the angels, that you're not numb to the weight of eternity, that you're not indifferent to your assignment. Comment 999 below if your spirit says, I hear it, I feel it, I surrender, because this number isn't random, it's prophetic. It means the old ends here, the new begins now. Chosen one, it's time to remember what hell already knows about you. Your existence disrupts darkness, not because you try to, but because of who you are, because of what you carry, because your very presence exposes the strategies of the enemy. He has studied you more than you've studied yourself. Since your birth, he has marked you as a threat. That's why the warfare came early. That's why it felt personal. Because it was personal. You carry something that can't be replicated. You carry light, not the kind that flickers with mood or environment, but the kind that exposes, the kind that makes spirits tremble, the kind that makes atmospheres shift. Wherever you go, something gets unsettled, not because you speak, but because you exist. You've wondered why certain people couldn't stay around you. Why some relationships, though smooth on the surface, couldn't survive your presence. It's not you, they couldn't handle your light. Because people still in love with their darkness will always feel discomfort near someone who walks in truth. The demons in them recognize the spirit in you. It's not that you were too sensitive. You were too awakened. And that sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was discernment. That ache you felt when you entered some rooms, that's because your spirit was registering warfare your eyes couldn't see. That deep resistance in certain moments. It wasn't social awkwardness, it was spiritual collision. You are a walking collision point. The moment you step into a place, the invisible becomes agitated. You stir what others have been content to let sleep. You awaken what others have ignored. This is why you feel exhausted in places where others feel comfortable. Because your presence triggers the system. But don't resent that weight. Don't hide from that light. It's confirmation. You weren't made for comfort. You were born to confront. You are the divine interruption in demonic cycles. You are the broken one who breaks the pattern. The wounded one who wounds the enemy back. The one who shouldn't have made it but did. The one who wasn't expected to rise but now stands. Satan doesn't attack the irrelevant. He spends his energy on what threatens his agenda. And you, chosen one, have been a threat since before you understood your own value. The rejections, the attacks, the isolations, they were not just about your past. They were about your future. The enemy tried to steal your confidence before you could walk in your calling. He tried to make you hate yourself before you discovered the image you were made in. But heaven didn't let him win. Yes, the battle has been intense. Yes, the nights have been long. But look, you're still here, breathing, standing, listening, and not just surviving, you're awakening. You are not weak. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are becoming. God never promised that the calling would be comfortable, but he did promise that he would never leave you in the fire alone. The flames might rise, but they won't consume you. You are fireproof, not because of your strength, but because of the one who walks with you through the furnace. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against you in judgment you shall condemn." That's not poetic, it's prophetic. The weapons formed, yes, but they did not win, because your light was covered. Your future was preserved. There's something else you need to know. Darkness doesn't fear religion. It fears revelation. And revelation is what you're stepping into now. When you see who you really are, you can't go back to who you pretended to be. That's why there's been resistance. That's why confusion tried to fog your mind. Because when a chosen one remembers, all of hell trembles. This remembering is dangerous to the enemy, because memory births movement. When you remember who you are, you begin walking differently, talking differently, praying differently, not as one begging, but as one possessing. And when you walk like that, cycles break, chains shatter, doors open, and hell loses control. This is the moment when the battlefield shifts, not outside you, but within you. When you stop seeing yourself as a victim of attack and begin moving as a weapon of heaven. You are that weapon, not in pride, but in power. Not because of ego, but because of identity. When you understand that you were chosen before the battle, you'll stop being surprised by the war. And this war isn't about you, it's about what comes through you. It's about the people you're called to free. The children who'll never fight what you've had to fight. The generations that will walk in light because you chose not to run from yours. That's why you can't quit. That's why you can't shrink back. You've come too far. You've endured too much. You've survived what was meant to bury you. And you did it all with a spirit that wouldn't break. Chosen one. Hear this now, and let it settle in your soul. You are the proof that light still wins. You were made for more than fitting in. You were made to wake the sleeping. You were called to pierce the shadows. You are the disruption in the enemy's plan. You are the answered prayer in your bloodline. You are the chosen one. Chosen one. The traps weren't random. They were handcrafted, tailored, strategic. The enemy didn't throw general distractions at you. He designed specific snares to sabotage your soul. From childhood, he studied your pain points. He observed your weaknesses. He watched what made you doubt, what made you delay, what made you disconnect. And he built traps around those very things. He saw your tenderness and tried to twist it into codependency. He saw your hunger for love and tried to poison it through betrayal. He saw your need for purpose and tried to misdirect it into performance. Every snare had a purpose, not just to stop you, but to deform you, to turn you into someone unrecognizable to heaven. He knew he couldn't destroy the mark on your life, so he tried to make you forget it. And it almost worked, didn't it? There were seasons when you were numb, where you settled for noise instead of presence, where you convinced yourself that survival was the best you could hope for, where sin became sedation, where you laughed with others but cried when you were alone. That wasn't weakness. That was warfare. You were under siege and didn't even know it. But through every trap, every misstep, every compromise, God kept pulling you back. Quietly, constantly. Even in your lowest moments, he never left. Even when you rebelled, his mercy was relentless, because heaven never stopped calling you by your true name. Even when you forgot it, you were never just a target. You were a threat. And because of that, hell had to be creative. It wasn't just external attacks. It was internal warfare. Thoughts, accusations, confusion, emotional loops that exhausted your faith. Have you ever wondered why your thoughts attacked you the most after moments of peace or progress? That wasn't mental fatigue. that was spiritual backlash. Because each time you moved closer to awakening, darkness moved closer to silencing you. But it didn't succeed. You're still here. You still hear. You still hope. And that means the traps failed. Even the ones that almost worked. Even the ones that made you question your identity. Even the people who came into your life looking like help, but carried hidden harm. Even the situations that promised elevation, but brought only exhaustion. They didn't end you. They educated you. Now, you're walking in awareness. Now, you recognize patterns. You see red flags. You feel spiritual tension before it manifests naturally. That's discernment forged through fire. That's wisdom paid for in pain. And heaven will use it all. What the enemy meant for destruction has become training. Joseph said it to his brothers in Genesis 50. Asher, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done. That verse isn't just a story. It's your reality. You were thrown into pits of pain, but you're rising with perspective. You're no longer falling for the same bait. You're no longer giving in to the same lies. The warfare tried to rewrite your identity, but heaven kept the blueprint intact. Your identity is still valid. Your assignment is still active. And every trap is now part of your testimony. This is why the enemy fears your healing. Because a healed you is a dangerous you. A whole you becomes a weapon of clarity in a world full of confusion. A healed you prays with focus, speaks with fire, lives without fear. And most of all, a healed you helps others heal. The enemy didn't just try to trap you for you, he tried to stop the ripple you would cause. He knew that once you broke free, you would start unlocking others. That once you found your voice, you'd become a clarion call to those still wandering. That once you remembered who you were, you'd expose every lie that held others captive. So he tried everything. Isolation, depression, busyness, false intimacy, religious guilt, spiritual apathy, emotional instability. But none of it prevailed. Not because you were perfect, but because you were preserved, marked, guarded by angels even in your rebellion, watched over by grace even in your collapse. Now, the tide has turned. You are no longer in survival mode. You are stepping into strategy. You are not reacting. You are responding. You are not circling the same cycles. You are charting new paths. Every day is now a reclamation of what was lost. Every choice now carries momentum. You're no longer guessing. You're discerning. You're no longer chasing. You're aligning. And the traps, they've become testaments, proof that you can't be held by what God already freed you from. Proof that even when you fell, you didn't fail. Proof that your story is not about shame, it's about overcoming. The enemy underestimated the weight of your calling. He thought a few detours could cancel your destination, but now he sees the truth. You're more dangerous now than before, because you've tasted bondage and chose freedom, because you've been deceived and now walk in discernment, because you know what it means to be bound and what it feels like to break loose. You are a threat because you've lived through the trap and emerged with the map. Now walk in that wisdom, not with fear, but with fire. You've survived customized traps because heaven had a customized plan. Nothing stolen will remain lost. Nothing broken will remain shattered. You are not starting over. You are continuing stronger, wiser, bolder. And the traps, they'll wish they never met you. Chosen one. There is something you've overlooked for far too long. The invisible protection that surrounded you in moments you chalked up to coincidence, luck, or timing. But none of it was random. Heaven has been active in your life in ways you couldn't see, blocking attacks, rerouting destruction, canceling assignments that would have crushed you, and you didn't even know it. That near car accident, delayed on purpose, that unexpected illness that kept you home, a divine interception, that person who suddenly ghosted you, heaven's disarming of a spiritual trap. You were disappointed in the moment, confused, hurt. But now, as you begin to remember and re-examine, the pattern becomes clear. God has been guarding your steps, even when you weren't watching your path. There were moments when you almost gave in, almost said yes to something that would have stolen your peace, almost stayed where your soul was suffocating, almost surrendered your identity for momentary affirmation. But something always stopped you, something you couldn't explain, something you called intuition. It wasn't just a gut feeling, it was an angel on assignment. You see, your life has never been unattended. You've been followed not by fear, but by favor. Not by random blessings, but by a divine escort. The enemy had plans, but God had protection. And that protection wasn't passive, it was strategic. Because the weight of your calling required heaven's interference. You've cried over closed doors, not knowing those doors led to hidden traps. You've mourned over endings, not realizing those endings saved your spirit. And now, the angels are revealing just how much you were spared. The enemy didn't just want to harm you, he wanted to discredit you, to drain your discernment, to lead you into places where your voice would have been silenced. But the angels stood in the gap. There were spiritual ambushes arranged that never made it to you. Not because you were lucky, but because you were covered. Psalm 91. Onse declaris, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. That word isn't symbolic, it's literal. There were plans that didn't happen, meetings that were mysteriously cancelled, people who turned away at the last moment. That wasn't chaos. That was divine choreography. You thought you were losing, but you were being led out of danger, led around destruction, led into delay that preserved your life. There are some prayers you stopped praying, some promises you gave up on, but heaven never stopped protecting what you abandoned. God's faithfulness didn't depend on your consistency. He guarded you, even when you forgot him. Chosen one. It's time to give credit where it's due. Heaven has been working in the background the whole time. Angels have been fighting battles you didn't even know existed. There's a reason the depression didn't swallow you. There's a reason suicide didn't win. There's a reason addiction didn't define you. There's a reason shame didn't drown you. Because angels were covering you. They hovered in the silence. They stood watch when you laid sleepless at night. They whispered when your mind spiraled. They warred while you wept. And they didn't give up when you gave in. Because they weren't following your mood, they were obeying God's command. You were chosen, and chosen ones are never unguarded. There is a boldness rising in you now, not because you feel strong, but because you finally realize you were never alone. Even in the worst seasons, even in the silence, even when you cursed the heavens in pain, grace still surrounded you. Mercy still pursued you. Protection still covered you. And now, that protection becomes power. Because awareness brings authority. Once you recognize how much you've survived, how many traps didn't work, how many attacks failed, you stop walking like a victim and start moving like a vessel. You are not fragile. You are fortified. The enemy's problem with you is that he couldn't break you, so he tried to blind you. Blind you from seeing what you carry. Blind you from recognizing how you were spared. Blind you from realizing that your survival was strategic. But now your eyes are opening. You are not here because you figured it all out. You're here because God covered you until you could. He protected you while you learned, preserved you while you wandered, defended you while you doubted, and all the while, the angels kept fighting for you. So pause now, not to react, but to recognize this isn't just about survival. This is about divine covering, a hedge that held even when your strength collapsed. Let heaven know you see it now. Let the spirit realm know you're aware of what didn't happen. Comment, still covered. Because every time you should have broken but didn't, every time the trap was set but failed, every time the plan of darkness collapsed before it reached you, that was not random. That was God. That was the angels. That was mercy, shielding you without needing applause. And now, you declare it back. You speak it into the timeline of your life. Still covered. Chosen one. Listen closely, because this is where so many give up. They confuse delay with denial. They assume silence means disqualification. They mistake the stillness of heaven for rejection, when in truth, it's preparation. But hear this clearly. Your calling is not cancelled. You've been through seasons where it felt like God stopped speaking, where the flow you once felt suddenly dried up. You prayed and heard nothing. You fasted and felt nothing. You obeyed and saw no results. That silence wasn't punishment. It was strategy. God was quiet because he was building you into someone who can't be moved by noise, into someone who leads, even when applause stops, into someone who stands firm, even when heaven feels distant. The assignment didn't go anywhere, you just outgrew the old instructions. You see, before God unveils a chosen one, he will often hide them. Why? Because premature exposure can destroy what hasn't been rooted deeply enough. The weight of your assignment demanded a depth that only silence could dig. But now, the silence is breaking. What was dormant is stirring. What was on hold is realigning. What you thought was forgotten is being reignited. And what you thought had died was only buried in the soil of time, waiting to sprout in the season of maturity. Romans 29 says it clearly. For God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. Heaven doesn't revoke what it ordained. You may have drifted. You may have doubted. You may have delayed. But you never disqualified. Because you were chosen before the conflict. And your calling was sealed beyond your emotions. This is your confirmation. The anointing is still there. The power is still in your bones. The authority still rests on your name. You're not starting over. You're stepping forward. What you thought was a detour was a deeper layer of preparation. Think about it. If the doors had opened when you first knocked, would you have been ready? Would you have known how to steward the influence? Would you have carried the discernment to protect your peace? The silence wasn't there to starve you. It was there to strengthen you. And now, you're no longer the same. Your silence has produced depth. Your waiting has matured your voice. Your pain has made your discernment razor sharp. And heaven is no longer hiding you. It's highlighting you. Because hidden ones become heralds. Those who stayed faithful when unseen become the ones who carry the weight of truth when the spotlight hits. If this truth is hitting your spirit, if your heart knows this is more than just words, then don't let it stop with you. Click the like button. Share this with someone you know is called but weary. And keep the flow of confirmation moving. You never know who's on the verge of quitting. who needs this exact moment to stay in the fight. And if this word is stirring something sacred, something personal, subscribe now. Stay connected to this frequency. Don't drift back into noise. Stay rooted in the voice that reminds you who you are. And if you're someone who believes in sowing where you're fed, consider giving. Every seed makes this message travel farther, faster, and deeper. Every offering helps echo this truth into the spirit of another chosen one who doesn't yet know they're chosen. Because the battle isn't over, and we're building an army of awakened voices. Your silence had purpose, but now, your voice has power. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are being unveiled. It's your time. Chosen one. Let's talk about the silence. Not the outer kind, the stillness in a room or the absence of noise, but the deep, spiritual silence that wraps around your life like a fog. The silence that follows fervent prayer. The silence that lingers after obedience. The silence that makes you question whether God is still near. You know it well. That ache of divine quiet. The moments where the heavens feel sealed. Where your cries echo back empty. Where your spirit reaches up and touches nothing. And in that silence, doubt tries to whisper, maybe he's done with you. But he's not. Because God's silence is never abandonment, it's alignment. It's not distance, it's development. The silence of heaven doesn't mean you're forgotten. It means you're being formed. He trusts you enough to be quiet, to step back, to let the deeper work take place beneath the surface of your soul. Think of the seed buried in soil. It's not dead, it's hidden. It's being broken open in darkness so that life can emerge in the light. You've been hidden like that seed, covered by circumstances, buried beneath responsibilities, surrounded by spiritual stillness. But something is stirring underneath. The silence has not been passive, it has been protective. God was shielding you from false platforms, from premature recognition, from open doors that would have exposed you before your character was sealed. He was teaching you how to stand without support, how to believe without applause, how to worship without sensation. Because chosen ones don't depend on noise. We depend on knowing. You were never supposed to build your confidence on constant affirmation. You were meant to walk by faith, not feedback. And that faith was forged in silence, in questions, in long nights where all you had was the last word God gave you, and that's all you needed. The silence taught you to remember, to go back to the last whisper and cling to it like oxygen. It trained your ears to hear the still, small voice that doesn't compete with the chaos, but calls you through it. It made you strong in the unseen. It made you unshakable in the unknown. You learned how to sense His presence when there were no goosebumps. You learned how to believe the promise when the evidence vanished. You learned how to wait with your spirit alert, even when your emotions were tired. That is spiritual maturity, and it was grown in the garden of silence. Look back now. See how God was still moving, even when He wasn't speaking. Doors were shut because He was guiding. Relationships ended because He was protecting. Assignments shifted because He was refining. You didn't recognize the patterns then, but now they begin to make sense. You weren't being ignored. You were being insulated. He was preparing you for the weight of your next season, and that weight requires a depth of silence most never survive. But you did. You made it through the void. You kept walking through the fog, and something inside of you didn't break, it sharpened. Isaiah 30:15 says, "In quietness and trust is your strength." That scripture is a mirror of your process. Your strength wasn't built by striving, it was built in your stillness. Your authority wasn't crafted in noise, it was carved in quiet. The silence that almost made you give up, it's now the very thing that qualifies you. Because the ones who walk through silence and still believe they're the ones the kingdom can trust with volume, you can carry the message because you've lived it. You can speak into dry places because you know what it feels like to be spiritually parched. You can walk into rooms and carry the presence without needing a spotlight, because you are the evidence that God still speaks even when He's silent. And now, that silence is shifting, not because you earned the sound, but because you endured the silence. There's a release coming that your spirit is already sensing, a clarity forming around you like a storm gathering force. What was hidden is about to be highlighted. What was whispered is about to become a war cry. Not to impress, but to impact. But don't forget the silence. It was your teacher, your guide, the furnace that refined your discernment. It was the cocoon where your wings were formed. And even when the noise returns, carry that stillness with you. Stay rooted in that place where you learn to know Him, not just feel Him. Because noise will come, opportunities will open, platforms may rise. But you were never built to be a product of applause. You were built to carry presence, and presence doesn't require volume. So when others chase exposure, stay hidden in Him. When others shout for attention, let your stillness speak. When others panic in silence, be the one who remembers. This is where strength is born. The silence didn't steal your voice. It gave it weight. You speak now with fire because you listened in the quiet. You pray with depth because you wept in silence. You move with clarity because you stayed when others fled. And all of that, all of you, is proof that heaven's silence is never without purpose. It was never the absence of God. It was the presence of preparation. Chosen one. This part may not be easy to hear, but it is necessary. Because truth doesn't flatter, it frees. And here is the truth. Mercy does not wait forever. You have heard the call, again and again, through dreams, through divine interruptions, through moments like this where everything around you suddenly feels paused. And all you hear is the tug of God's voice pulling at your soul. But each time you delay, the cost grows heavier. Heaven is not casual with mercy. It is sacred. And sacred things are not to be handled carelessly. There is a shift happening now. Not in your emotions, but in the spirit realm. The gates that have stayed open for you, they won't remain open by default. The path you've been invited to walk isn't always going to stay lit. There is a moment when light withdraws, when mercy steps back, when silence becomes God's final answer, not because He's punishing you, but because He's honoring your choice. That moment isn't here yet, but it's close. And that is what this warning is about. You feel it, don't you? That trembling in your chest, that holy unease. That's not fear. That's your spirit, remembering that time is sacred, that decisions matter, that heaven doesn't plead with indifference. This isn't another emotional high. It's a line, a spiritual line, that you're standing on. Delay is not harmless. It is deadly to destiny. Every time you say not yet, you push back the very purpose you were born to fulfill. And eventually, purpose doesn't wait. It passes, and heaven finds another vessel, because God's plan will be fulfilled with or without us. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to awaken you. The Bible warns us in Proverbs 29:e. Whoever remains stiff-necked after many rebukes will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. That is the danger of delay. It dulls discernment. You don't even realize you're drifting until the voice fades, until the fire dies, until mercy doesn't speak again. You've been circling the same mountain for too long, stuck in the same loop, praying for confirmation when you already have instruction, waiting for peace while ignoring conviction. But what if the delay isn't God's timing? What if it's your disobedience? Heaven is not interested in your comfort. It is after your conformity, not to culture, but to Christ. And that transformation starts with surrender, not convenience. There are no soft paths to power, no shortcuts to spiritual authority. You must choose. You must obey. You must move. Because mercy is not infinite. It is offered. And right now, it is still available. But for how much longer? That's not up to God. It's up to you. Don't think you'll always feel the urgency. Emotions come and go. What you feel right now is rare, a divine window of clarity. The kind of moment where heaven and earth align and your soul is pierced with truth. Moments like this don't repeat forever. When mercy speaks, you respond. Because one day, the scroll closes. One day, the angels seal the invitation. One day, the silence isn't a setup, it's a sentence. And on that day, what mattered wasn't how often you heard God's voice. It was how often you obeyed it. You were not called to live on pause. You were not created to coast. The oil on your life is too costly for hesitation. Your assignment is too urgent for delay. You've waited long enough. The time is not tomorrow. The time is now. You don't need another sign. You don't need another song. You need a surrendered spirit. If your soul still stirs at this moment, if your heart is still tender enough to hear the voice of warning and feel the weight of eternity pressing in, then declare it. Say it with reverence, with finality, with fear of God and hope in His mercy. Comment 999 below. Not as a trend, not as a ritual, as a response, because 999 means, this is the end of my delay. This is the beginning of my return. Chosen one. The gate is narrow, not because God is cruel, but because the path is sacred. And what is sacred must be protected. The wide roads, the popular routes they offer, comfort without consequence. But the narrow gate, it demands surrender. It demands focus. It demands that you leave behind everything that cannot carry the weight of glory. Many are called. Few respond. Not because they're less gifted, not because they're less loved, but because they are unwilling to part with what the wide gate lets them keep: comfort, compromise, self-will. The narrow way isn't about legalism, it's about alignment. The narrow way doesn't restrict your life, it reveals its purpose. You were not made to fit into a system of spiritual laziness. You were never meant to walk in crowds that settle for lukewarm living. Your spirit has always known this. That holy dissatisfaction you felt in rooms where others felt comfortable, that wasn't rebellion. It was recognition. You were made for more. You were called into consecration. The gate doesn't open through effort. It opens through yielding. The more you surrender, the more clarity flows. The more you let go, the lighter your steps become. And with each obedient move, you get closer to the center of why you were born. Others may laugh. They may mock your fire. They may call your conviction too deep, too intense, too much. But it's not too much, it's real. And in a generation drowning in performance, your authenticity is not a burden. It is a beacon. You are not walking this path alone. Though it feels narrow, you're surrounded. Heaven is watching. Angels are guiding. And others, just like you, are quietly walking this narrow road, burning with the same fire. You are not isolated. You are part of a remnant. There's a holy group. Heaven is raising up. Not perfect, not polished, but pure in pursuit. People who don't need to be pushed to obey. People who don't compromise when the crowd cheers for sin. People who are more hungry for His presence than for influence. That's the tribe you belong to. But entry costs you. It costs your pride, your idols, your timelines, your opinions. The gate doesn't open for those who want to bring baggage. It opens for those who are willing to walk in brokenness and let God do the rebuilding. This is why the gate is narrow. Because the assignment is weighty. Because the oil is costly. Because your yes has ripple effects beyond your lifetime. Jesus said in Matthew 7, "See, but small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. This is the way of the called, the hidden, the holy, the hated by man but held by heaven." You won't need to advertise your obedience. It will announce itself. Your light will say what your lips never have to. Your fruit will speak. And those walking the wide road may not understand, but they will notice. You were not meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be obedient to one. This road may feel lonely, but it's lined with purpose. It may feel costly, but it pays eternal dividends. Every no you give to the world is a yes you give to God. And He sees. He knows. He honors. Chosen one. Keep walking. The narrow path sharpens your steps. It weans you off applause. It detoxes you from performance. It roots you in presence. And slowly, steadily, power grows. Quietly, deeply. Legacy is built. You're not just being obedient. You're building something eternal. Not all will find this gate, but you have. Not because you were smarter, but because your spirit stayed soft enough to recognize the whisper. Because despite it all, pain, confusion, delay, you never stopped seeking. And heaven responds to seekers. This isn't the end of your road. It's the refining of your route. The gate is narrow, but it's still open, and you've found it. Chosen one. There is a crown with your name on it. It isn't a metaphor. It isn't a symbol of some vague reward to come. It is real, spiritually tangible, eternally crafted, and fit to only one head. Yours. No one else can wear it. No one else can carry what you carry. No one else has walked your exact road, wept your exact tears, or bled from your exact wounds. That crown is not interchangeable. It is the mark of your endurance, the proof of your obedience, and the seal of your becoming. You've wondered if you missed it, if the delays, the detours, the decisions have cost you your position. But hear this. What is truly yours in the kingdom is not given away just because of detours. It is guarded. It is preserved. It is protected until you're ready to reclaim it. That crown hasn't been lost. It's been waiting. Every day you get closer to it. Even when it feels like you're slipping. Even when the spiritual fog is thick and your steps feel unsure. Heaven isn't measuring your pace. It's measuring your persistence. Crowns aren't given to the fastest. They're given to the faithful. There is weight to what you've carried. You've walked through storms not meant for beginners. You've stood in spiritual winds that would have crushed others. But you kept walking, sometimes limping, sometimes crawling, sometimes dragging your soul behind your spirit. But you moved. You endured. You didn't quit. And endurance, in heaven's eyes, is royalty. James 1:12 reminds us, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." You haven't just been enduring, you've been earning that crown with every yes in secret, every no in private, every tear kept between you and God. Others might have more talent, others might have louder platforms, but what you carry, it's weight. And in the kingdom, weight means trust. You've been entrusted with more than you realize. That's why the warfare has been intense. The enemy doesn't war over empty vessels. He wars over oil. And your oil has been pressed in pain. That's what makes your crown different. It doesn't sparkle for man. It shines for heaven. It isn't worn for recognition. It's worn for authority. You are stepping into a season where the authority over your life will no longer be invisible. People won't just hear your voice. They'll feel your mantle. They won't just recognize your faith. They'll be marked by your presence. Not because of ego, but because of evidence. The evidence of what you've survived. The evidence of what you've broken through. The evidence of what you've obeyed. Crowns are not ornamental. They are operational. They grant access, represent dominion, and confirm identity. And yours was forged in fire, in silence, in surrender. It wasn't placed on your head after applause. It was carved into your spirit during adversity. There's a reason your journey felt so personal, so specific. Because your crown was designed for your exact calling. God didn't give you someone else's path because He didn't create you for someone else's purpose. You've been walking with spiritual measurements that don't fit anyone else. And yes, you've been tempted to trade it, to lay it down, to leave it behind. The weight felt like too much, the warfare too consistent, the delay too long. But you didn't quit. And even when you wanted to, you couldn't. That inability to walk away, that was evidence that the crown was already forming. It's almost time to wear it. But be warned, crowns don't come without cost. There will be those who question your authority. Those who were comfortable with the older, quieter version of you will struggle with the royal mantle you're about to walk in. They'll label your fire too much, your focus pride, your assignment extreme. But that's only because they didn't see what it took to get here. Your crown is not for them to approve, it's for heaven to confirm. And heaven already has. Now the only question is, will you walk like you're wearing it? Will you speak with the weight of one who knows they were born for something greater? Will you move with the discipline of royalty and the grace of one who has been forgiven deeply? Will you finally live like the crown is not just waiting, but ready? Because the moment you embrace it, everything shifts. Demons recognize it. Angels respond to it. Heaven backs it. And all of hell regrets not stopping you sooner. This crown is not casual. It was made for you, and you alone. Chosen one. The second angel speaks again, this time with finality in his voice. He's not shouting. He doesn't need to. The weight in his tone is enough to silence every distraction in your mind. His words are clear, deliberate, heavy with the breath of eternity. This is your last wake-up before the veil drops. It's not meant to terrify, but it is meant to shake you. This moment isn't about emotional reaction. It's about spiritual revelation. You've reached the threshold. This isn't just another message, another video, another moment. It's your intersection with divine finality. And what you do now How you respond now will echo far beyond your emotions. You've heard enough to act, felt enough to move, seen enough to surrender. The angel is not here to convince you. He is here to record you, to mark what your spirit does with this divine opportunity. This is the last knocking before the door begins to shut. Before what was available by grace becomes locked by your choice. You cannot walk with casual steps any longer. You cannot live as if you have infinite time. You cannot treat this crown like an accessory. This is a mantle, a sacred responsibility, a divine charge. And heaven has held your place for too long. The veil is about to drop, not in punishment, but in finality. You were born to wear glory, not just talk about it, not just dream of it, but to carry it, to move with it, to disrupt the works of darkness because of it. But to do that, you must decide, this is where double-mindedness must die. You cannot live with one foot in compromise and the other in calling. You cannot toggle between delay and destiny. This angel has stood quietly long enough, and now, with tears that burn like oil, he gives you the final word. Choose. There's no fear in his voice, only urgency, because you are closer than ever before to stepping fully into who you were always meant to be. You don't need to go search for your calling. It's not hidden in a book, a title, a degree. It's written into your very spirit. And heaven is waiting for your yes, not your explanation, not your justification, just your yes. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 6, Now is the time of God's favor. Now is the day of salvation. That word wasn't just written to a people. It was written to you right now, in this moment, as your hands tremble and your spirit stirs. Heaven says again, now, not next year, not when life slows down, not when things make sense. Now. And if your spirit is responding, if your heart knows this message was carved for your soul, then take a moment. Let the spiritual world see your agreement. You don't have to scream it. You don't have to explain it. Just type a declaration. One small sentence that opens a door wider than you know. Type, I step into glory. Let this be the moment you declare alignment, not just with a calling, but with divine glory. You're not chasing approval anymore. You're stepping into what was always yours. This is more than a comment. It's a coronation in the spirit. Let heaven see it. Let the darkness know it. Let your soul remember it. And if this word burned in you, if it struck something deep, something true, then don't let it stay locked inside your screen. Click like to signal your recognition. Share it with someone else. Heaven might be chasing through your obedience. You could be the bridge between someone else's confusion and their calling. Subscribe to stay near the sound of your destiny. This isn't a moment, it's a movement. One you're being called to walk in, to lead in, to live in. Don't drift back into silence. Stay near the voice that reminds you who you are. And to the ones who feel led, if you want to give, do it, not out of pressure, but alignment. When you pour into the place that feeds your spirit, you multiply its reach. You extend the invitation to others. Every gift is not just support, it's seed. And this soil is holy. The second angel steps back. Now, his message has been delivered. His hands are raised not in surrender, but in reverence, because he sees what's forming around you. The light gathering, the fire kindling, the mantle settling over your shoulders like weightless flame. You've chosen your crown. Now, walk like it. Chosen one. The fire is coming. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that purifies, ignites, and commissions. Heaven doesn't send fire to harm those it has called. It sends fire to mark them, to separate the ordinary from the anointed, to distinguish those who are willing from those who are merely watching. And you are standing in the path of this fire. It is not emotional. It is not sensational. It is holy. The fire of God isn't for show, it's for sealing. It brands your soul with divine urgency. It burns away what cannot follow you into the next season. It awakens dormant power that's been buried beneath layers of distraction, disappointment, and delay. The obedient are about to walk in something unprecedented, not because they earned it, but because they aligned with it. There's a weight of power being released from heaven, but it is not being poured out indiscriminately. It's not for the passive, not for the curious. It's for the ones who move when God says move, the ones who build in silence, who pray when no one's listening, who obey without needing to understand. You don't need to beg for fire. You prepare for it. The fire falls where there is sacrifice, where altars are built in secret places, where hearts are emptied of idols, where the posture is not performance but surrender. That's where the flame finds a home. And right now, heaven sees a ready altar in you. You may not feel strong, you may not feel holy, but you've made yourself available. You've chosen obedience over options. You've said yes when everything in you screamed to walk away. That yes was firewood, and the breath of God is now turning it into flame. This is what you were born for, not to impress crowds, but to carry consecration, not to be famous, but to be filled. You are part of a remnant who is not afraid of the flame, a people who do not flinch when God refines, a generation who would rather burn with purpose than blend into the background. The fire won't just anoint you, it will separate you. You won't think like everyone else. You won't move like them. Your convictions will feel heavy, but it's because your calling is weighty. You'll feel tension. Others don't, because you're being trusted with dimensions they've never seen. And there will be moments of isolation. Fire often creates distance, not because God is cruel, but because He's carving clarity. He's showing you what's real, who's real, what stays, what must go. But do not fear the fire. It's a sign of divine favor. The enemy doesn't mind lukewarm souls. He trembles at those who burn. And you are about to burn in a way that makes hell nervous. Because when the fire of God touches the obedient, everything changes. Words carry power. Prayers become weapons. Presence becomes piercing. Your life no longer whispers truth, it thunders it. And you won't have to try to be powerful. You'll just have to stay surrendered. In Acts 2, when the fire of the Spirit fell, it didn't come upon everyone. It came upon the ones who waited, the ones who didn't leave the room, the ones who obeyed when the instructions didn't make sense. The fire came after obedience, not before, and it changed everything. So will it be with you. Heaven has waited to release this next level of glory, not because it wasn't ready, but because it was waiting for your yes to be real, for your surrender to be complete, for your altar to be built, not in public, but in private. And now that it is, the fire falls. This fire will not always feel good, but it will always bring good. It will expose things in you before it exposes things around you. It will refine your motives, strip your comfort. But with each layer burned away, the anointing will shine brighter. The voice will ring clearer. The power will move deeper. You are about to walk in authority that can't be taught. It's caught through flame, through fire, through fervent faithfulness when no one is watching. And when it comes, don't shrink. Don't apologize. Don't dilute it to make others comfortable. You didn't ask for this fire. You were chosen for it. And those who are chosen to carry fire are chosen to release it. You will not only be marked, you will be sent into families, into systems, into places that have been spiritually dry for years. And when you open your mouth, fire will fall. Not because you're loud, but because you're lit, chosen one. This is your unveiling. You've carried the weight. You've endured the fire. You've stood when everything said, sit down. You've walked when you could have collapsed. And now, heaven is not just whispering over you, it's declaring, the time for hiding is over. The season of delay is done. You are stepping into what has always been waiting for you. Manifested glory. You are not emerging because of opportunity. You are emerging because of obedience. And what you're stepping into now isn't about promotion, it's about purpose. God is not elevating you to be seen. He's releasing you to be used. You've been refined for this moment. You were never behind. You were being built. The years of obscurity, of silence, of spiritual struggle, they were not punishment. They were preparation. Heaven was shaping you into someone the world couldn't define, and hell couldn't stop. You are not the same. The warfare shaped your prayer life. The betrayal matured your discernment. The silence built your endurance. And now, you carry something unshakable. You've become the type of believer that darkness fears. Because you don't speak from theory, you speak from testimony. You've seen the valley and didn't die there. You've faced the silence and kept going. You've stood at the edge of giving up, but something holy inside of you refused. That something wasn't just stubbornness. It was spirit. The breath of God never left your lungs. And now that breath is becoming a sound, you are a voice for this hour. Not an echo. A voice, not a mimic. A mover. You're not here to repeat what's been done. You're here to carry a sound that breaks cycles. A presence that changes atmospheres. A posture that says, I've been with God, and I'm not the same. Everything you've walked through has led to this. Nothing wasted. Nothing random. The shame that once clung to your shoulders has been burned away. The fear that tried to muffle your message has lost its grip. The insecurity that whispered lies is now silenced by fire-forged identity. You walk with holy, knowing now. You no longer hope you're chosen. You know you are. You no longer guess if you're ready. You are. And the world may not recognize it yet, but all of heaven stands in agreement. Your name is known in the courts of angels. Your presence is registered in spiritual realms. You are not just another soul trying to survive. You are a sent one, anointed, commissioned, prepared. You are a weapon, not the kind that wounds, but the kind that liberates, the kind that cuts through confusion and carries clarity, the kind that carries the character to match the calling. You've been tempered like steel, pressed by pressure, sharpened by storms. You don't look like what you've survived, and that's the point. Glory leaves no trace of the grave. This next season isn't about you being seen, it's about God being revealed through you. And because of that, the weight on your life is sacred. You are not to blend. You are not to bow. You are not to bargain. You are to burn. Burn with truth. Burn with purity. Burn with purpose. You are heaven's proof that chosen ones still rise, that the remnant is real, that surrender still carries power, that fire still falls on obedience. And now, As this word closes, the Spirit speaks over you, not a new message, but a holy reminder. You are chosen. You are sealed. You are unstoppable. You are sent. Chosen one. Take a deep breath. What you've just heard wasn't content, it was a commissioning. These weren't just words on a screen. This was a divine encounter. You've been called, warned, awakened, and reminded of what's always been written in heaven's records. You are marked by God. But don't let this moment fade. Let it take root. Let what was stirred today shape the way you walk, think, and move from this point forward. This isn't about emotional highs. This is about spiritual reality. Your identity has been reaffirmed. Your assignment has been reignited. Now, walk it out with boldness. And if your spirit says yes, if this message echoed through dry places and watered something sacred, show it. Not for us, but for others still searching. Click like to signal heaven's voice is being heard. Share this word. Someone in your circle may be one message away from returning. Comment your final agreement below. Let the record be sealed. You heard. You received. You responded. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay in the frequency of truth. Stay near the sound of heaven. And if you've been deeply impacted, sow where you've been fed, whether small or sacrificial. Your giving helps these words reach others. It keeps the oil flowing. It keeps the fire spreading. You are part of something bigger than a video. You're part of a remnant, a family of the called, the kept, and the crowned, and your journey, it's just beginning.